I am Dr. Eli Camp. Welcome. This is my podcast, Vital Wisdom. And this is where I talk about health, wellness, homesteading, raising children, and lots of other topics, all from the perspective of vitalism. I believe I've seen and taught others how the body can heal itself if it's given what it needs, it's not poisoned, and the innate healing ability of the body has been supported, not suppressed. It is my intention to bring what I have learned in my life, especially the last 24 years of being a physician, to help you be your own best doctor. Hope you enjoy the episodes, and thanks for being here. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Eli Camp here, and welcome to Vital Wisdom. Just a reminder, we're talking about this idea that the body has the ability to heal itself. We are self-healing organisms and creatures, like so many other creatures on the planet. I feel often that we're not taught that at a young age, unless you have parents or family members, who were raised like that, who understand that. Instead, we're taught this idea that our body's not smart enough to do what we were designed to do, and that's simply not true. And as I say all the time, although it is just a little bit more complicated or a few more steps than what I boil it down to, if you give the body what it needs to flourish, you nourish it, you take care of it, you get anything out that's poisoning it, and you stimulate that innate healing ability, it happens every single time. The body heals itself, and we don't even need to run statistics on it. It's so reliable. There isn't a time that doesn't happen. Now, the degree of healing that can happen can vary person by person, but it happens every time. So it's a law of nature. We are self-healing. And I'm very excited today to welcome Dr. Lisa Amerine to my podcast, to Vital Wisdom. I've known her a long time. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you all more about her. But I've learned from her. We have worked on many different projects together. We've served on boards together. We've taught classes together. Someday we're going to write a book together if she can ever get to two packets of time to rub together. I'm working on her. I think we'd write a brilliant book together. And yeah, so without taking any more of your limelight, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have my folks hear from you, Dr. Lisa Amerine.
Well, thank you. That was so great, the introduction, and hearing just your introduction to this podcast just made my heart leap with joy. We'll get to that, but thank you for having me. So a little bit more about myself. I have a practice in Lafayette, Colorado, so I am just outside of Boulder. I've been in practice for 20 years now, 21 years technically, but we'll round it down for today. And it's been a long time. And I have my love and passion in medicine is homeopathy because it stimulates the body to heal itself. So a little bit more about me. I'm a naturopathic physician. As you said, Dr. Camp, have done so many. I've been on boards. I've done projects. My most current venture is that I am the current president of the American Institute of Homeopathy, which is the oldest medical institute in the United States, formed in 1844, which is a huge honor for many reasons. One, I just said its history. It's been in existence since 1844, and it's the oldest medical organization. Two, I'm the first naturopathic physician to ever be the president of this organization, which historically is huge because the American Institute of Homeopathy for the longest time was only medical doctors, not even osteopathic doctors. That wasn't probably till the 1960s. And then it was a hard shut door to any other physician at all, really until the mid to 2015-ish, where then it's kind of open and changed. And so that's a really great thing from there. That's where I spend a lot of my time. I've also loved and served and still continue to serve on the Homeopathic Academy of Naturopathic Physicians, where it's designed for the naturopathic physicians to continue to protect homeopathy within naturopathic medicine, where we do a lot of continuing education. That's where you and I have worked so much. I don't know. I don't even know how many hours, way lots of hours to count. You would think I could, because we're not working together on that, we would somehow have time to keep doing our other projects. And we just have to rearrange our time because it's always there. We just have to rearrange it.
Right.
Um, but I think that's a little bit about me of things. Other things that I do, I also serve the United States for the what's called the Liga Medicorum Homeopathica Internationalis, or some might know it as LMHI, which is the International Organization for Homeopathy. And they have one representative from each country that is a representative, and we get together and we discuss any kind of things that are happening in the world in homeopathy, whether it be political, whether it be something supporting in a country, whatever it has to do with homeopathy. And that is amazing to see what other countries are doing with homeopathy. So I think that's I don't know if I know I've left all kinds of things out that are probably there. Um, but we'll go with
You're
that. And
busy. You're a
other,
busy, busy, busy lady.
yeah,
And you also have a practice alongside all of that community work and profession
yes.
work that you're doing.
Yes, I have a very full-time practice. And when I say very full-time, it bursts at the seams. I see patients 4 days a week, 7 to 8 hours a day. And so I do a lot. And my practice is again based in homeopathy. So it's not protocol or, oh, what do I do for this? It's a lot of hear the body, hear you and stimulate and give a right homeopathic medicine. And just for fun, I mean, I have two daughters and a husband, and my daughter's getting ready to go to college, and I don't know if it slows down from there, but I can tell you right now, it's that's a whole nother level of life of trying to you have this child for 18 years that you have been, you need to let me know you're communicating, you need to do this, and all of a sudden you're like, go away and have fun, and that's a whole nother level of,
It is a whole other level.
of life.
It is. Thankfully, mine are, so Brian's 17 and he's doing concurrent college and high school. And this is going to be a good transition because I don't think he'll stay local. I think he's also going to want to go study
Yeah.
abroad or out there in the world for a while. He'll end up back here. This is the kind of life he wants on the homestead farm, and my audience knows how I have to try and weave all that into being a doctor and being busy and all that. Sophie's a little bit slower, right? She's okay to just be a high school student and a teenage girl, but does it get less busy? Well, it's like a gas. My and I know I watch you. You're the same way. As soon as you have that extra time and that extra space, what gets your attention? Homeopathy and everything about it. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So uh the AIH, this is an interesting organization. And I'm curious, do you know why they decided to open the doors to naturopathic doctors?
I think there's a lot of reasons that they did. The first is because I'm going to attribute to Andre Sane. He is a brilliant naturopathic doctor, a brilliant homeopath. He's a dear friend of mine. And he has contributed so much to so many people in homeopathy, including me. I would not be the person I am without his training and his kind of guide rails coming alongside me. And he did a lot for them and for homeopathy. And it started with they offered him an honorary membership. And he said, that's great. Why don't you let naturopathic doctors join? And some of the old guard of the AIH were the original the mission the original mission laid out by Constantine Herring 1844 was protection of the materia medica and protection of physicians who are practicing homeopathy, making sure that they're doctors and they know homeopathy. And he really pointed that out and said, "But we are physicians. You've got to let this in." And so he persisted and made that, and they kind of sort of thought about that. There was a title protection control for a long time. No, no, we're medical doctors. We went through
Right.
medical school. We had to convince them that so did we. We did these same things, and so they couldn't deny that we were physicians. We were prescribing. We were doing all the doctor things, and great homeopaths. And so that was one thing. Another thing that had really shifted was, unfortunately, in organizations, professional organizations, and this is not just a homeopathy, this is professional organizations across the board are really dwindling down. And people's engagement, their decision for engaging in these kinds of activities have shifted. They no longer have it's been a social shift for people. For a long time, I think because I was just in homeopathy, I thought it was just homeopathy. But one of the benefits of aging in time and wisdom and seeing the world is you realize that, oh, that's actually not just us, and it's a wee bit self-centered to think the problem is just on us. It's
Right.
all cultures are having this problem in the United States. And so the numbers were dwindling, and there was no one new coming in, and there was not new medical doctors coming in. And so for their sake of keeping the organization alive, they needed to look at other ways to be able to do things and shift a little bit. But it wasn't out of a desperation, we need members. It was
No.
we have well-trained physicians that we're not including, and we had to have a mind shift. And then we had to encourage people to come in alongside. And
Right.
so that's kind of where it started. And here it is.
Right. Right. Well, I was overjoyed when I learned that they had done that. For those of you who don't know this, our predecessors and great teachers were MDs,
Mhm.
right? Dr. Hahnemann was an MD and a number of other folks. But they were ostracized from within their community, right? They were the black sheep MDs who were doing things and this is, I believe this is true. I've seen it in a few movies that the AMA was formed sort of in response to the great success that homeopaths were having in the country, and it was formed by people who were not homeopaths who were trying. It was a turf war, right?
So it's really interesting, the history of this. I just read this, this, and now I'll fess it up to everyone. Although if you know anything about me, this is true. I'm a great homeo nerd. And my pastime is reading journals that are 100 years old or old articles and reading. I recently read all of the AIH bylaws and all of the minute proceedings. Oh my gosh. That was the most fun I felt
Okay.
like I was having dinner with Timothy Allen fighting with Carol Dunham over something that Adolphe Lippe said. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. But because in boards you have the back end
Oh,
conversations
yeah.
and
Oh,
you
yeah.
can find those notes. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. But anyhow, aside from that, so the American Institute of Homeopathy was formed. Um, I'm going to back up to the time of Hahnemann. So Hahnemann
Yeah.
died in 1843. And the AIH was formed in 1844. But in Hahnemann's life, as a medical doctor, he was ridiculed for asking questions outside of the conventional paradigm. He was not allowed to ask questions outside of the conventional paradigm. And so he did. He said, but this isn't working. People are dying. We're poisoning them. We're destroying them and killing them. And they are dying. And I found this other approach, this other application of medicines, of our medicines, meaning our medicines at the time, it was herbal medicines. It was mercury, it was arsenicum, it was belladonna. They were using these medicines, but in such crude doses that if you survived, you had severe complications that went on for a long time. And he's like, there's a different approach, there's a different way. And so that's where the law of similars came. Well, he was ostracized for thinking outside of the box, right? He still did his thing. He's like one of these great leaders who who could step outside of the box and people could yell at him and scream at him and he didn't care.
He
I'm
didn't
not like
care.
that. I get sad and might cry if I think you don't like me. So that's a big struggle for me politically in homeopathy, because my natural instinct is to want you to like me. And I don't like to make people mad. So I've had to practice that. But he seemed, maybe he didn't, maybe he cried in his back room by himself. I don't know.
No,
But
I can't imagine it.
me neither. Me neither. But he could take it. You could like say whatever, and he did this. So he went on and he trained people and inspired people, and he had, Ernest Stoff and Adele Felipe and Constantine Herring and all these people that he inspired, and they came over to the United States and they began to practice, and they were so successful, so successful that at the time so many people, numbers wise, compared to the conventional world, it was still a little bit smaller what was in homeopathy, but more people were doing homeopathy. And then as time went on, they discovered that you could use a little bit smaller doses and a little bit smaller doses. So in order to protect and to form something, there was within homeopathy, there was a lot of debate of there was a lot of people saying, well, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. The disadvantage of thinking outside of the box and going outside of your boundaries is you can get a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of noise that goes on. And so
Right,
in an attempt to protect that, um, what happened was Herring said, what if we form a medical association in the United States that's the American Institute of Homeopathy. And this has two goals. One is to protect the reliability of the materia medica. Two is to protect the physicians and make sure that the physicians that are part of the American Institute of Homeopathy are practicing homeopathy and doing homeopathy as they should. That's how it was set up. Okay, so it was set up under those guidelines. There was a whole group of people that put that together, and it had some pretty strict boundaries in it. Well, the medical doctors didn't like homeopaths. The conventional medical doctors did not like homeopaths. And they were very, I'm going to say, straight-laced. You weren't also allowed to think outside the box. They didn't like homeopathy. They didn't want people practicing homeopathy that were doctors. They didn't like the success of homeopathy. So they formed the AMA. And the AMA was very strict. They were very dogmatic, and they were only allowed to do this, XYZ. You had to stay in this lane if you were going to be a medical doctor, and if you're homeopath, you were not allowed. If you're a homeopathic medical doctor or physician, you were not allowed in. And the AIH was actually set that way as well. If
right,
you do homeopathy, you have to do homeopathy. You have to show you're doing homeopathy. And it was set this way. That's how it was set in 1844. It went forward that way, 1844, 1845, 1855, 65, until we get into the 1870s. And all of a sudden, the homeopaths were accused that the membership was also accusing the AIH of being just as rigid and dogmatic as the AMA, of not allowing anything but you know the the principles that we know as classical homeopathy: single remedy, optimal dose, like our single are the things that we have, of the rules of homeopathy, right? The law of
right.
similars, single remedy, this piece of it. And they're like, well, what about if we do this and we do this? And in comes people asking questions, right? Saying, oh, how can we make things better? So here comes Carol Dunham's infamous speech of saying, in homeopathy, we want it to succeed. His, we want to allow everybody in, was actually kind of a middle finger back to the AMA.
Right,
Really, really,
right.
really. I don't think most people know that.
No,
That it was actually we're open because look, Hahnemann is who he is because he broke the grail, or he went away, and so therefore we're going to allow opening things and other thoughts in the AIH because you won't AMA, and look, that's where we got where we did today. So
yeah,
came the you know um the we're going to allow other, if you have different thoughts of homeopathy into the AIH, that came there. This was a big AIH board fight for 10 years. It went on. Even T.F. Allen wrote a whole article about how anybody who does any kind of homeopathy, doesn't matter what, if you're doing combos, if you're doing protocols, if you're doing whatever it is, it all can be under the American Institute of Homeopathy, which then opened up, this whole big debate in homeopathy of like, oh, what is homeopathy? What is not, right? All of you listening know this. You're probably rolling your eyes like, oh my gosh, see, this fight is a 200-year-old fight. And it is a 200-year-old fight of
right.
like, what is homeopathy? And they're doing it right and they're doing it wrong. And oh my gosh, they're prescribing, they give a 10 m several times a week, they're going to kill the person. Or, oh my gosh, they didn't read this enough. Or, oh my gosh, they gave 10 remedies at one time. Or, oh my gosh, they just held a dowsing over it and gave the remedy. Or, oh my gosh, they thought you looked like a bumblebee, so they're giving you eight, like, right? The fights, and these are clean fights. I'm giving you the PG version of fights that went on because I told you I'm a nerd and I read this stuff, and whew, there's some good ones. Um, um, and so it actually it's interesting historically of what happened to the AIH. And there's many other things. Like at the same time, there was schools were flourishing. When that was opened up, membership came, all kinds of physicians joined the AIH, whether they knew homeopathy or not. And that's still the case today. If just because you're a member of AIH actually doesn't mean you may or may not know anything about homeopathy. It might mean you like homeopathy, but it might not mean that you actually really, really understand homeopathy. The schools were thriving, everything was thriving, everything was going. And then in 1810, the Flexner Report came. And the Flexner Report also has a bad reputation in the sense that they were out to get homeopathy. They're not out to get homeopathy. They were out to make sure schools were doing as they should. It's so interesting. This is happening in today's world as well. They were going to say, are the schools financially solvable? Are the doctors actually making a living when they get out? Can they afford to be doing what they're doing? Like, what's their financial fiscal responsibilities? And they found many schools, not just schools that were homeopathy, didn't meet that. And so they were closed. Actually, 5 homeopathic schools survived that Flexner report because they were financially solvable, which was actually a large percentage in the early 1900s of medical schools that were financially solvable. But what was happening at the time is no longer were people teaching pure homeopathy. And when we go outside of the realms of pure homeopathy, the success rate goes down. Is there success that happens? Of course there is. Are there things that are helpful? Of course. But when you compare true pure homeopathy, you're prescribing based off of the law of similars. You're doing optimal posology, optimal dosing. You're giving a single remedy at a time. You're not doing a little bit of this. You don't have too many cooks in the kitchen. You're not doing too much. You're stimulating the body, and then you're getting out of the way and letting the body heal. When you do those things, the success rate is far better than when you say, oh, we're just going to do a little bit of all of this all at one time.
Right.
Doesn't mean that doesn't work.
Right.
But it does mean it's not as successful and it's not as good. So people were teaching over here. They were teaching these, let's do this. And oh, when you have tuberculosis, let's give this, and this, and this, and do this. And the success rate dropped a little bit. And therefore, the foundation of homeopathy dropped because people forgot to teach the foundation, the law of similars, and that application. And so the schools then failed really because people weren't out, the interest kind of dwindled. At the same time, the pharmaceutical world was coming in and saying, oh, well, there's these medications we can patent, we can do this, we can build this up, we can give this much money. So the money became greater over here. And unfortunately, in the world of economics, money is money and it has its conversations, right? So, and so that kind of sped out. Meanwhile, over here in the AIH, they lost the foundation of where things were. So over time, it dwindled away and it dwindled away. And it dwindled away. And what left standing, this is no surprise, what was left standing was the handful of those that are doing solid, good, pure homeopathy. Not all the time, not all of the case, but at this point still, even to be in the American Institute of Homeopathy, you have to be a physician. You don't have to show any standard of level of knowledge of homeopathy, which is where, again, if we fast forward, this is where our diplomat status in naturopathic medicine, we have the diplomat status of homeopathic physicians in the AIH, and I'm pushing this so hard. I'm getting a wee bit of kickback, but I'm pushing it so hard that in order to be of leadership of homeopathy in the AIH, you must have diplomat status, which is done by the American Board of Homeopathic Medicine, of which still gives that diplomat status, which means you proved that you are doing these things in homeopathy. And the leadership is worried about that because they're saying, well, no one is interested in that. No one wants the diplomat status. And so therefore, we're never going to have leadership and the AIH is going to die. And my response is, do we let the AIH die because we turn it over to anybody? We had a new member this last week. I'm grateful. In her application, she says, I don't know anything about homeopathy, but I love it. What if that ends up being at our leadership of guiding of what is homeopathy? Like, I'm sure she's a fantastic person and eventually we'll train her in homeopathy, but we have to be really careful to protect that leadership. And that goes in naturopathic medicine as well with the
Right.
HA&P. which, I mean, you and I think we made this case, it was easy with the HANP, that there had to be, majority of the leadership had to be diplomat status to protect
Right.
homeopathy. That's what I'm doing in the AIH. And it's a big fight because fast forward that whole history, I gave you all of that history to kind of show how the AIH landed where it did today
Right.
and why homeopathy dwindled. I think homeopathy dwindled because unfortunately, when we said anyone can come in, because they're right, Hahnemann broke the rules, and that's how where he was. They didn't create a protection guardrail mechanism to protect, to make sure that good solid homeopathy persisted. They didn't do that. They didn't build that in, and it was the ultimate beginning of the downfall of
But
homeopathy.
now it's a revival. Right
It's a
now,
huge revival.
it's a
Yeah.
huge revival, and people are, I think, an interest is blooming in understanding classical homeopathy because there's such a clear difference in clinical outcomes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And right, I mean, you got to be a different kind of doctor to even look at being a homeopathic practitioner.
Right.
And so once you get past that first hurdle of even acknowledging that there's something there in a world of potentized medicine or very dilute substances, right? Once you can overcome that obstacle in your brain and then learn how to use it, it's very systematic.
Oh, yeah.
Hahnemann laid it all out for us in the Organon.
Yeah.
And I wonder all the time if he were still alive, would he have seen some of the developments and thought what he would have thought about some of the developments? In particular, I want to talk about something with you. So I recently, in the last couple of years, found Dr. Isaac Golden
Mhm.
and started reading his work about homeoprophylaxis, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's using potentized medicine to prevent or mitigate infectious disease outbreaks, pandemics. And Dr. Andre Sane has recently written a book after how many decades of study and historical research, right?
The
What's
Lippe book?
book?
The Lippe book, the Lessons in Pure Homeopathy?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's right back there. Well, one of I have it's a 2 volume. Yes, I met Andre when I was 19, and he was going to have it published in 3 weeks. When I was 19. Um,
Right.
I'm 47. And I got it last year. He sent me an autographed copy of it and said, for there. So I got it when I was 46. So three
He
weeks,
spent years on
so much
this.
work. Right. He did
Dr.
this just to say really quick, just to say that
Yeah,
and then he did that because he found a whole lot more work or more articles, and then the internet opened up even more. And so all of a sudden, when he thought it was out in 3 weeks, he found 20 years worth of material that he had to
right,
sit through. So that's why it took so long for
right.
that. And I'm grateful
Well,
for
he's thorough. If like he's completely thorough, and I had the great opportunity to see his library 20 years ago when I went to a conference that he had. He does it every year, and I happened to go to one of them. We got to go to his house and look at his gardens, where he was growing all these great herbs, and showed us his library, and his universe is just mind-blowingly awesome when it comes to homeopathy. So anyway, as I'm reading Dr. Isaac Golden's words and his thoughts and looking at things that he has gathered from historical writings and things like that, I realized that even Hahnemann
Mhm.
talked about homeoprophylaxis, although he didn't use that term specifically. I don't believe he coined that term, but he talked about this idea that you could have an outbreak or an epidemic where the majority of people, a significant number of people, have symptoms that are covered by a specific remedy. And it can change depending on where you're at in the world. Like this region of the world might look this way, and over here it might look that, for any number of reasons. And so I put all of this together because for years, I know you know this, and I know my listeners know this, but maybe you're new to my podcast. One of my first patients was a vaccine injured child. And that led me down a path of working with a large number of people, parents and other caregivers, who would come in, and the first thing they would say when they sat down at my desk is, I don't want to vaccinate my child. I'm scared of the damage that I believe might occur. And so I don't want to do that. And so as a vitalistic naturopathic doctor, I always had to walk them through the, well, you've got to create health in your child. That's the first thing. Regardless of what you're going to do with them, you have to create health. And this is how you do it. And then, of course, that caused me to explore the possibility of using potentized medicine to help protect children and adults and other people who say, I don't want to inject myself with anything. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you're comfortable talking about your thoughts about that, about homeoprophylaxis.
Sure. So I actually presented, I don't know if you know this, on Isaac Golden's work in 2007.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And so, so Hahnemann does talk about this. He would use the whole concept of, if a disease state was going around and there were these particular symptoms that indicated, scarlet fever. All of these people had belladonna. Where it started was with belladonna and scarlet fever. And he realized that many people got it, and then he started giving people who were well belladonna, and they did not get scarlet fever. So that's when the first thought. Meanwhile, at the same time, you have to remember, simultaneously, vaccines are starting to be
right.
brought out at the same time. So Hahnemann knew the concept of vaccines. And I suspect, I've never ever found this in the literature written anywhere. I suspect the concept of vaccination and homeopathy were in similar conversations, and these guys went this way and these guys went this way.
Right.
I've never found that to be to be true. So, or I've never found anything proving that in literature, but I suspect that to be true. And if you understand the way homeopathic medicines are made, the way vaccinations are made, you would think, oh, that's probably true.
That is probably what happened. And
probably true.
And just before you keep going, just real quick, I just want to tell everybody, there was an entire faction of medical professionals at the time of vaccine that were adamantly and strictly opposed to injecting them into the body because they viewed them as poison, and because early on you actually fared better without the vaccine.
Sure.
You were much more likely to die and get very sick getting that injection than you were if you didn't get it and you maintained some sort of health and good hygiene. Anyway, I want to say, this is from the beginning. The medical profession was split.
Yep, from the beginning. And what homeopathy did is they continued totality of medicine, and then they found the genius, and then they found an infectious disease you could find the genius epidemicus, right? They found that you could say, oh, this is the general rule of symptoms. Here's medicines you can do to prevent that. So if I stay on the homeopathy side, when we have infectious disease that we know the symptoms well, we know measles, we know mumps, we know chicken pox, that the symptoms are more or less the same. Your version of the chicken pox was probably super similar to my version of the chicken pox, right? There probably wasn't that much varying in symptoms. It's the disease itself that's unique. So when we have all of those things, you can, and there's an outbreak going around, you can give a homeopathic medicine, and it will stimulate your body into balance, into homeostasis for, so that your susceptibility towards it goes down, right? And that's what Hahnemann would say. That's what he would say. Okay, so we can find that pulsatilla, or maybe even potentially the nosode. Hahnemann didn't use nosodes.
No.
But if you could say this, these are the symptoms. This is where the law of similars would be applied. We know the epidemic disease is going around. Therefore, we can give this medicine, and your susceptibility will go down. We can prevent a ton of disease, and we have seen that. We see that going on. We've seen it in cholera outbreaks today. We see it in Haiti right now. They're using it to prevent cholera. They're using homeopathy. I mean, some of the stuff that the Americans Without Borders are doing to prevent infectious disease in some of these war-ridden countries is so cool.
Leptospirosis in Cuba, that's a study that was done with millions of people. chikungunya
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fever
yeah,
in
yeah. Right,
India. It wasn't as large of a study, but the outcomes were so dramatically different, right, between
right,
who contracted and who did not contract illness. You don't even have to run statistics on it.
right, right,
It's just what you're talking 25% versus 85%. You don't have to run a statistic on that. You can,
right,
it's clear and obvious.
right, right.
Um, now,
Well,
well, go ahead.
what I think Hahnemann would say, so what started this is like, what would Hahnemann say about all of there's a couple of things. And now it's been I haven't researched Isaac Golden's work since like 2007. So we're at, 2025. So there's a lot of years of stuff that I haven't read from him.
Right.
What Hahnemann would say is, yes, absolutely, you can do that when something is going on. I think what Hahnemann would say you cannot do, and this was in one of the books that I believe it was his work that was there, was kind of like a vaccine schedule. Oh, I'm going to give you the measles nosode at 12 months, at 18 months, and then again when you're 5, following the conventional schedule. Hahnemann would blow that out of the water and say
Right.
that's not how it goes.
Right.
And I bring that up because I get that question in homeoprophylaxis all the time. Oh, can I just have the nosode and do that instead of the vaccine schedule? And the answer is no, it does not work that way. Can I use homeopathy as prevention and homeoprophylaxis against all of these illnesses? 100% yes. Can I
Yes.
just say, oh, meningitis, I've got a daughter going to school. So they're like, oh, meningitis vaccine. I can't just be like, well, let me give her the meningitis nosode and then she's as good as new and protected. I cannot do that. And with any bit of confidence, send my child to school and say she's protected and know that she's not going to get sick. I can send my child to school on a good homeopathic remedy, a good constitutional remedy. And if there's outbreak of whatever the illness is, I don't care what the illness is, it can be measles, it can be meningitis, I can then use that a medicine, even strep throat. I do this for strep throat all the
Yep.
time. Um, I can then use that medicine as a prophylaxis, give it to prevent her from getting sick. But I can't just give it today and assume she's going to be protected all through college the way that a vaccine schedule could. And I think Isaac Golden has shifted that a little bit because in his early work, he was at least protocols were out that way, and people took that and ran with that in our country.
Right.
And that's what Hahnemann would say, absolutely no. But he would say 100% sure you can do that genius epidemicus, which is what Hahnemann coined the term of what it was. And then it kind of came into homeoprophylaxis a little bit later um,
Right.
for that protection.
Well, and
So,
there's all different ways people promote and do homeoprophylaxis. So there is an idea that once you introduce information, the information that and this may be you might read this in Golden's work and several other folks and say, yeah, no, probably not. But when I read it, I thought that's interesting. It's
mhm,
interesting since we don't understand the mechanism of how our body receives that information, what it does with that information. All we can see is the clinical result.
mhm,
There's lots of ideas. We know this, and we've had some great conversations. There's lots of ideas about how our body takes that information. Does it store it? Does it remember it? And then we uh, face something where our susceptibility is low and something is out there that could cause us to develop symptoms of illness. You'll notice I'm being very careful not to say we have something out there that causes disease because you know how I feel about that.
yes,
I believe it's susceptibility and that this stuff is always out there.
mhm,
Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, sometimes there's less sun, so there's less vitamin D, whatever. Um, I am in that camp of people that believes that when we use a potentized medicine, our body somehow registers that information somewhere
mhm,
in our body.
mhm,
And when our susceptibility is strong, when we become more susceptible, if we do encounter something in the environment that would find us to be a very hospitable host, that information that we did take in at some point in the form of a potentized medicine could potentially help mitigate
mhm,
how severe an infectious disease or an outbreak is. I don't think of it like vaccinating. And I personally don't teach that to people. I don't say, oh, you're going to do this series of potentized medicines and it'll be just as good as if you went through a vaccination schedule. Um, but there are people out there who teach that and say that. And that's unfortunate. Folks, you can't think of it like that. You can only think of it as little packets of information that you introduce to your body, and then who knows what happens with what your body does with it. Does it store it in the energetic field that you are? Does it store it in DNA or RNA? Does it kind of linger? Like, where's the music on a CD idea? There's information in a music CD, but you can't see it. You can hear it, you can measure the sound waves, but the core of what makes music music, you cannot see that.
Right.
And I think it's the same way when you take in a potentized medicine. There's information there that your body can use. And so when I think homeoprophylaxis, that's what I think.
Right. That's what I think as well. And that's as it should be. And that's why I give the distinction of the other, because so many people, and and it's out there all the time. I get asked all the time on this question. And they'll come in and I'll say, but it's this way. And then people say, well, what if I get infected with, I'll use mononucleosis. My daughter had, my 15-year-old had mono this summer, of which instead of being a 4 months no fun, we were at like a 5.5, 6 weeks of no fun, which is great, right? But people,
mono, that's pretty good.
Right. And we only had about 7 days where we were down, nothing.
That's even better. And I'm sure you treated her with individualized homeopathic remedies, right? Potentized medicine. I'm trying to change my language over time, right? Potentized medicine, homeopathic to the case, that probably helped a lot. And she most likely will not experience the typical mono relapse.
No, but everyone around her treated her like this germ infested, I'm going to get mono from you and you have this. And it was great. It was actually the best teaching thing for my daughter. We talked about it so much because when she doesn't feel good and she's laying there laying behind my desk because she doesn't want to be far from me. She hears me all day long work. And so
That's not pulsatile at all.
No, actually, no. Right there. This last week, she went away to camp for the first week since she'd been sick, and I felt like I was missing an arm because I was like, "Where are you?" And she is not that way in normal, so it was pretty funny.
Right.
But how she, people were like, "Oh, this disease causes that," and I was like, "No, you were susceptible. Your friends may or may not be susceptible. This is the same whether it's mono or whether it's strep throat or whether it's a disease we don't yet know the name of, or it doesn't matter. It's all about our susceptibility, which is why you can't say, what can I take to, can I give a meningitis nosode to prevent meningitis? No, because can I take that? No, you can't do that. That's a different frame of thought. It's our susceptibility. It's how do we keep our body in balance, in homeostasis, so that if something is coming around, our susceptibility is less, if at all. And when I say less, if at all, it doesn't mean it's not there, right? My daughter's still got mono. She's been treated with homeopathy her whole life. Like, so in an ideal photo picture world, she should always be in homeostasis and never be susceptible to illness, right? That's not how that goes.
Well, she probably was low on sleep, stressing about school. She's getting ready to go to college.
It's my younger one who got sick. She's sad that her big sister's going to college.
She's sad because her sister's going to college. So her susceptibility to anything is very high right now.
Right.
Yes.
And so she got sick. And then when she got sick, we were able to get through so the symptoms were less. It doesn't mean it went away. I mean, there was that third week was no joke. And and the recovery, it was still no fun. But everyone she talked to was like, oh, I was sick for 4 months. I couldn't do anything for 4 months. I had to be homeschooled. I couldn't do that year. And every person, it was the first thing they said to her. she'd get these eyes of terror, and she is a go-getter. The way I picture
Yeah.
Alexa is, those little skinny blow-up men that fill with the air that flow like this for marketing. That's her
Yeah.
100% of the time. And when she got mono, it got unplugged and it went to the ground. And
Yeah.
she would try to plug it back in and it would go,
Yeah.
she'd try to plug it back in and she couldn't until this last week. And then she got up mostly. Maybe the arms were a little low, but she was 90% running hard now. And um,
Now, I mean, people are probably wondering, was there an outbreak of mono in your area?
I don't know anyone else that had it at the time. None of her friends have had it that I'm aware of. I mean, they had
See,
it last.
folks, this is an interesting idea.
Yes.
And it doesn't always have to be because everybody around you has something. We
Oh,
really have to look at ourselves individually and say, what am I eating? How am I sleeping? What's my stress? Am I managing my stress? Is there something major happening in life that's affecting my emotional state? Because that all happens at a very, very, very deep level, right? And then our resilience drops, our susceptibility increases. Um, good, 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 good. Okay. Do you want to say anything else about that?
no, I think that's good. It's fun.
So, uh, there are lots of things out there right now. When we use the word homeopathy, there's lots of things going on. One of them in particular, now I've already given my spiel to my people and I've posted this on social media, and I feel very strongly about this. But before I tell you my thoughts, I want to hear your thoughts because we could be aligned or you might be able to play devil's advocate for me. So with this blooming of AI information, Chat GPT, and a bazillion other ones that are out there. What I'm noticing is this trend and people calling me saying, hey, I asked Chat GPT based on these symptoms what remedy I need. And this is the remedy it came back with. I want to hear your thoughts on people using this tool, and then if we have time, because how many thoughts you have about it, I'll tell you what I think about it.
I, for the most part, it drives me crazy. And I actually said to a patient accidentally, my susceptibility might have been low, which meant my irritability was a little bit high. And when she said, well, when I looked online, it said you should never take this for this condition. I was like, well, then go see Dr. Chat GPT. I have another patient in the waiting room, um, is what I said there. Oops. Um,
Oops.
so my susceptibility was low, right? Did I tell you I had a sick child, which meant I was in a little.
No sleep, and yes, yes,
Anyways, so here's the thing. ChatGPT is almost like when Google came out for us in like when it got really big and we could look at anything. It's almost like the antibiotic era in the 1940s when it cured everything and it made everything better. It is the newest, cleanest version of the bathroom wall of what I
right.
can find on it. So and I've played with it because people ask, they call and they say, I found this. I went online and I found this, and sometimes they might be able to find something. It completely depends on where you're at. And I've seen it shift over the last year of what's reliable and what's not coming out. So,
Yes,
I was like, oh, this is very interesting. So ChatGPT as a whole, AI as a whole, is gathering all of this information. And so when it has all kinds of confusing, conflicting information, and it's not got the ability to sort through, you put something in, it's going to say, well, when your child has a fever, it might not be so safe to treat with belladonna because belladonna can actually be toxic. Where a year ago, it would have said give belladonna because of this. It's changed in this last
yes,
year.
yes,
It's changed in this last year. And so when you have like the generic version of ChatGPT that comes up on everything, all of a sudden it's different. Someone did that with a urinary tract infection. The symptoms were of causticum. And she gets on and she's like, oh, well, it says I shouldn't use causticum. It's super dangerous. I was like, it's no longer doing it, it's somehow put the homeopathy stuff over here. So just like with Google, we have to There's going to be weaving of how it goes. And I look at AI and ChatGPT like a car or like an airplane or a piece of machinery. It can be fantastic, but the person driving it better know what they are doing. If I
Right.
put my I don't have a young child anymore. You don't have a young child anymore, so we can't use it as our own examples of our children. But if I put a 10-year-old behind the wheel of a car and say, will you drive to Tulsa? I live in Boulder. Will you go to Boulder or downtown, and put them behind the wheel and say, have fun, you know,
Yep.
they are going to make a muck of things. Does that mean that the car is bad? No, I really like my car or my airplane because otherwise I wouldn't get to come see you because it would be
Yep.
hard. Um,
Right.
and so I really like the airplane, but please don't put me in the cockpit to fly it there because I
Right.
don't know conceptually, right? I know you pull up the thing. I've seen the movies. You pull up the thing, you keep it level, and I should be able to get up and down. Should be fine, right? I should be able to fly a plane. I learned on YouTube. I watched on Top Gun. I mean, I watched Top Gun 2 Maverick 50 times. Like I
Yeah.
totally could be
Yeah, let me totally fly a fighter jet
right, right?
and do
Because
loop-de-loops. You saw
oh
how
my
they
God.
did loop-de-loops?
Yeah, I might have to watch the movie a few more times to really understand that part. Um, but so ChatGPT is like this. It's like giving everybody a car or an airplane and they have no idea how to use it and to know if what it's doing correctly. So
Right.
therefore, that's a recipe of disaster
Right.
that's here. The person still has to understand how to operate that and understand what to do with that.
Yep.
It's we can't get it to go away, which makes me, I'm like, it's not going anywhere. So if I give that analogy, then we have a sense to go with it. I actually my AI of choice is Claude. I don't know
Yep.
if you know Claude,
I do know Claude.
but I put my own books into Claude and I set its own parameters. And so if I do that and then I say there's these symptoms, it actually isn't. It sometimes can be fun to play with. I'm still going to use my repertory, and I know,
Yeah.
but I also know how to fly the plane, right? I know how to fly this plane, and
Well,
so
that I was gonna say, like you could even probably use the generic AI tools out there with greater precision because here's what
I know
I
what
think.
to use. I know the words to use.
You have to know the questions to ask.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to know what information you're actually after from within this vast mega collection of pieces of information. You
Hmm.
can't just go on there and say, "Oh, I hurt my leg. What's the best homeopathic remedy for that?" Now,
Hmm.
if you've been taught and trained, even as a home practitioner by your homeopath, to know that maybe you start with arnica, or maybe it's ruta, or maybe it's Bellus perennis, but you're not really sure which one, you could look up what's the difference between these three remedies and probably find the information you need to narrow it down. But for chronic treatment, and this
No
is
way.
what I tell people, you don't know what your glitch is.
Mm-mm.
You don't know what you don't know, and therefore you cannot self diagnose and self treat and self prescribe using artificial intelligence. And the most important thing is artificial intelligence at this moment in time has no idea how to actually manage a homeopathic case
No,
because
none.
those guidelines are very individual, person by person, and it would be very difficult, I think, for it to learn. But I never thought that you could ask how what substance you could put in public drinking water to annihilate half the population of a state, and
Right.
apparently you can find that information very easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, you can find out lots. It's a dangerous tool. It can be a good tool if you know what to ask, but we don't know what to ask. And so if it's a hurt leg and you go to Arnica, great, that's fine. But it's interesting because I have found it to change over the last year, which means there's something else behind the scenes going on.
there's
This is why
something
I say
else.
it's the new bathroom wall, right? Like
Yeah.
people I mean, I know someone who is this, it's not with homeopathy, but he's like, oh my gosh, I went on ChatGPT and I learned this. Oh my gosh, I went on ChatGPT and did you know I just looked it up in ChatGPT and it said that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm in fourth grade and on the wall tells me what to do about something and therefore I'm gonna go spread it as the truth.
Yeah, that's the most concerning thing to me is what what people are doing with the information that they get without being able to discern. If you didn't know it before, what on earth makes you think that you can understand whether it's accurate or not after the fact?
You have to have a foundation to understand. I know we're getting close on time,
Yes.
so we're going to end on this, or maybe not. I'll let you be the timekeeper. You have to have a foundation. Once you have a foundation, you can decipher anything. But if you don't have a foundation of that,
Yep.
you cannot. And if it's flying an airplane, I can't go learn on YouTube how to do it. If it's how to change out the belt on my swamp cooler, okay, fine. Like
Yeah.
YouTube teach me how to do that. I watched it on my roof and I did it, right?
Right.
But but what's the foundation, right?
Right.
Where is it at?
Right.
Same
No,
thing. This is true with homeopathy, and we have to have that, and you have to know it is not just, oh, this is what it said. And people
yep,
are believing it, just like they believed antibiotics are going to cure everything. Just like when Google came out, everything was right because I read it on Google. ChatGPT is the new version of that, and it's not going to be
it's
okay.
not. No, good. I knew we would see eye to eye on that. Well, we are coming up on an hour. There are a bazillion more things I wanted to talk to you about. I think I'm just going to have you back another time because there's some non-homeopathy things I was interested in talking to you about.
Yeah.
But since I'm doing this little mini series on things homeopathy, and I've worked with Dr. Ameriine, y'all. So everything you've heard from all the other people practicing homeopathy, I'll tell you, is the same thing. You have to individualize the prescription. It needs to be managed over time. It's rarely give one remedy at one strength and you have a miraculous recovery, although this can happen, right? But it's very rare. It's much more common to have to take a remedy, to have to change the potency over time, to have to change the remedy itself over time. And managing a case is, you need experience to do that. I think we're Dr. Ameriine is in that camp of, well, classical homeopaths, pure homeopathy, and what other things happen on the outside, on the outskirts of one remedy at a time. I think what I tell people is that there's a difference between first aid, and chronic or constitutional treatment. And even the old masters would sometimes talk about alternating a remedy
For
or
sure.
right? Or even giving even some of them. Lipe has a writing where he gave 3 remedies at one time and said, does it matter? They're better. He wasn't foreseeing that he would have to manage that case on different strengths over time. He needed to stop something that was very dangerous and couldn't get the case completely and thoroughly to pick one of the remedies and didn't even feel, I think, that he had the 15 or 20 minutes to wait to watch to see if that was the right remedy.
Right.
This happens, but it should be the rare occurrence, not the everyday practice of homeopaths to throw a whole bunch of stuff in a bucket. We can talk about that another time. I always ask my guests if they have some words of wisdom for people on a healing journey, trying to find a better quality of life, trying to figure out how to live their life a different way or do something different so that they can experience something other than sickness and things that prevent them from their highest potential. What doctor words of wisdom do you have for our listeners today?
The body can heal itself. If we stimulate the body correctly and get out of the way and let it do its thing, it's gonna get better. Like stimulate it, get out of the way and let it do its thing. Meaning get out of our way of our minds, right? We can
Right.
spiral. The body will heal. It's simple. We don't need to make it hard. And that's what I say over and over to people is we're going to find a medicine to help you get better. We're going to stimulate your body to do what it needs to do. And we're going to get out of the way and we're going to let it work.
Good advice. Very, very good advice. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing all those wonderful stories and your wisdom and your knowledge and your expertise. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. It's such a great to be here. I look forward to coming back and talking more.
Y'all have a great week, and we'll chat again soon. Bye. Thanks for joining me today. For those of you who have written in, emailed, and are interested in my books and other offerings, I wrote The Unvaccinated Child as a resource guide for parents and caregivers to navigate childhood illnesses in a natural and healthy way. And while the intended group was the unvaccinated, it turns out it's an important resource for the vaccinated kids as well, since vaccines do not necessarily prevent illness. Smoke Rings is another book I wrote, and that's to help smokers support their health, regardless if they plan to quit or not. So for people who smoke, love a smoker, used to smoke, continue to smoke, this book helps you be your healthiest version. And when I say it is judgment-free, it is absolutely judgment-free. You're free to make the choices you make. I'd just like you to find better health while you make those choices. My most recent book, Homeopathy, A Foundational Approach, is really great for someone, whether they're a complete beginner or they've already been practicing homeopathy. It starts at the beginning and it guides the readers through the basics and on into first aid and acute practice, so you can start using homeopathy right away. That's the most important thing to me, is to get folks using homeopathy in their everyday life. My workshops and courses can be found at either ecampnd.com or longshadowsranch.net. Have a great week. Again, thanks for joining me, and thanks for your support.